Hello, basketball fans. It's DC Hewitt here for Fantasy Basketball Analyzer. It's Wednesday the 5th, and we're going to bring on Shad to help us build our DFS lineups for tonight. So I build a lineup, he builds a lineup, we go play head-to-head. But we've talked through how we built our lineups and why. That way we're not just giving out kind of, our pillars of here's these guys and you're scrambling to fit them around. Sometimes I think the interesting parts are really in what you had to give up or not, or had to maybe play a whole middle-of-the-road team because that was just the way it came through. We recorded this last night, Tuesday night, and so we recorded this before the 4-team trade went down, which I'm taking to assume means that none of those players in the 4-team trade, Houston, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Denver, are going to be available. If that's true, there might be some interesting options here that we didn't talk about. So Minnesota sent a lot of guys out, and it's a little bit of a head scratcher as far as who's still on their team for tonight's game. Anyway, I'm not knocking the deal. I think it's interesting. But so Gorgie Dieng is only 3,200. We saw how much he played when Cat was out. Cat's not out, but they might just need a body in the rotation. So I could see him playing a little bit more tonight, putting Cat a little bit more power forward. I don't think that's going to be an all-the-time situation. I don't think that's what Minnesota wants for their setup going forward. I think Cat is their center. But for tonight, while they're shorthanded, I could see them just needing players to soak up some minutes. If you want to pay up for Karl Anthony Towns, he should get plenty of minutes. Now, he should have got, on any normal night, he should get plenty of minutes. So maybe the upside isn't totally there, but it's against Atlanta, so it's already a good matchup. If you can fit him in there, I think it's worth throwing out a lineup with him. And then Jarrett Culver, we didn't talk about him at all. He's 3,900, but with Napier going out now, I think the plan is for Culver to be their starting point guard. It's a little early to say this. Obviously, the trade happened, 12 hours ago or something like that, less than that. But I would look at any of those Minnesota guys, see if maybe, someone lights a fire under you and get them into your lineup. Otherwise, I think everything's pretty straightforward. Otherwise, good luck. Happy Wednesday. Go out there, win some money on DraftKings. Let's bring Shad in and talk about our lineups. All right, Shad, welcome back to the show. We're recording on Tuesday, February 4th for the games that'll happen on Wednesday the 5th. We recorded also last week, but I was having technical issues and didn't get the episode out. But congrats to you. You beat me once again. That is 2 weeks in a row you beat me in our head-to-head matchup. As long as we're counting 2 weeks. Very specific timeline. I don't know how many times we've done it in the new year. We could probably go back and find it. But screw it. You have 2-0. I will give it to you. You've definitely beat me. Although apparently you need to enter some more lineups so that you actually start cashing like I do. You gotta tinker a little more on Wednesday. Watch the intro to our own show. Find some of the cheap bargain stuff that's come out when it gets closer when I put this show out midday. Yep. All right, well, you won, so it's your honor. Who you got in your playing point for you?
So playing point for me this week, I have Kyle Lowry. He's going up against Indy. The first time he played Indy, he had a really good game. I know he had 30 points, and I believe it was like 6 assists and 9 rebounds. So kind of going along those lines of, he's only 6,700. So even if he puts up 30 points, like if he follows the same stat line without the assists or the rebounds, he's right there close to where I need him to be. Going up against Indy, they're about middle of the pack in terms of point guard, giving up opponents fantasy points. So at this point, I'm going kind of a middle of the pack guy with Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you pointed out, his price at 6,700. He's actually cheaper than Fred VanVleet at 6,900. I'm not sure I would have ever expected that. Going into the season or whatever. That's a nice find. I cheated a little for my point. I mean, It's not cheating. It's the position eligibility. But I played Draymond Green, and he's not a point guard, and we all know it. But I get why they allow it. At 6,600, I just like Dre's upside. There's always the possibility of getting that triple-double. Against Washington, 12, 10, and 7. Against Cleveland. Unfortunately, he only got double digits in one. It was 8, 7, and 16 assists. So it was still a great game. So his price has ticked up a bit. He's up to 6,600, which is a little more than we've been getting him at the 5. And playing Brooklyn's not as easy of a matchup as, say, Washington and Cleveland, but I'm still not scared of the Brooklyn matchup. Just feels good and safe, 6,600. He already averages 30 points, so his average is 5 times value, and I could see him getting a 6 times value. Who you got at the 2?
At the 2, I went with Collin Sexton, 6,500. He's been kind of hot as of late. He got 44 fantasy points last game against New York. It's New York. He had 38 against Golden State and 36 against Toronto. Then he had another 40-point game against New Orleans. So kind of looking at that, I mean, most of those stats, if you average them out, he's over 6 times value of his cost right now with 6,500. There really isn't that many people in Cleveland that are scoring the ball. I mean, Kevin Love isn't having the year that he used to have, so he's not that 20 and 10 guy anymore. And so someone's got to score the ball. And Collin's really doing it off of scoring. He's never really been that assist or high assist guy. Those 4 games, the most he had was 7 assists, and then the other 3 games were 4 assists. So if you look at it, he's kind of like filling up the stats a little bit. He's going to get you 1 steal, maybe 2. Rebounds is going to get you about 2 rebounds, so he's going to get you a little bit extra points. But really, his money's in the going up against, or his money's going to be in the points. He's going up against Chris Paul, and he's going up against Shaquille Gillis, or however you say that.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai.
Shai Gilgeous. Shai. He's going up against Shai, and they've already played once this year, and he had about 20 points in that game. So even if he gets me about 20 points in this game, plus I kind of go along with the stat lines that he's been giving, that it'd be a downside if he only got me just the 20 points, but I could see him going for 20 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and at that point you're looking close to that 36, 38 value. So
yeah.
Who'd you have?
Played one from your hometown team. Played Tim Hardaway Jr. A guy who I have to eat a little crow because going into the preseason, I was just like, they're not going to use Hardaway Jr. like at all for the whole season was my expectation. But he just was coming off a great game in Indiana. 25 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. But he hit 4 3-pointers, all 3 of his free throws. So it ended up being 38 fantasy points. And his price didn't go up at all. He's at 5,600. So if I can get 38 off of 5,600, I'm pretty happy. But really, Luka's still out. Seth Curry was ruled out from Monday's game. He's still listed as questionable. And, oh man, I just drew a blank. Coach Rick can't screw with me too much because JJ Barea is listed as questionable. He started JJ the other night and screwed with me. But so I feel like it's a smart build to be playing one of these guards. So whether you want Hardaway at 5,600, pay up for Brunson at 5,800, or DeLon Wright at 5,200, I feel like one of these guards should be in the lineup because someone out of the 3 is going to pop. Or if you play multiple lineups, maybe they're all in the same price. You could literally just put in the same lineup and slightly pivot. But I liked Hardaway the most. He's coming off a good game. And I think he's got the most. I mean, Brunson could explode, but he could also get you nothing. Hardaway felt like the same ceiling but safer floor to me. At small forward, I've got Gallinari at 6,600. Going against Cleveland, normally I'm even more excited about specifically attacking the Cleveland guards, but I'm not really afraid of anyone on Cleveland. So you can attack that defense. Maybe Tristan Thompson gets some rebounds and boxes guys out. But other than that, I truly there's no one on that team I'm afraid of. And Gallinari's a hard matchup for them. Love can't get out there and guard him like that. Larry Nance Jr. maybe. Cleveland just doesn't have a guy to match him running around and popping those shots up. So I think there's the opportunity there as long as the 3 points falling. He was a little cold against Phoenix. He only went 1 for 6. But if he can make those threes fall, I think I can get my value at 6,600.
Yeah, you'll probably get lucky because Larry Nance, I think, is going to start again for Tristan Thompson. I think he's still going to be out. So, Tristan Thompson won't be there getting the rebounds. But I still like Gallinari going up against Larry Nance. Larry Nance he's been okay, but he just doesn't seem right since he's really come back from the injury.
Yeah, I mean, now that I plugged Nance in, but since we were talking about him, he's coming off a good game against New York, although it's easy to have a good game against New York, but he had 18, 8, and 6, so 39 fantasy points.
Yeah.
But I feel safer. I mean, Larry Nance is a 6,500. We're talking $100 difference between the two. I'd rather Gallinari, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what about you? Who's your small forward?
Small forward, yeah, you've kind of already talked about Tremont Green. I played him at small forward instead of the point guard position.
Is that cheating?
Just kind of like what you were stating. I mean, honestly, 3 of the last 4 games, he's had over 40 fantasy points. Which is weird because it kind of seems like he's gotten back into playing again. There's been this stretch where it's like, is Draymond still even on the team? You can almost go back 2 weeks ago when he got 16 fantasy points against Dallas. It's like, well, what's going on here? Just kind of went with Draymond. 6,600 is a good value there. So,
all right, let's keep the ball in your court. Who you got at your 4?
At my 4, I went with Porzingis. He's kind of hot. You went with the guard play, and I'll talk about the other guards later, but I went with Porzingis. He didn't play this Saturday, which is why I think Barea ended up starting. But his last 2 games, he's gotten 56 fantasy points and 59 fantasy points. Each game, he's gotten 35-plus points and 12 rebounds. So kind of looking at it, the shocker to me is that those 2 games, he's not getting any blocks, which he loves. He gets blocks in general up until at least 1 or 2 blocks for you. And those 2 games, he only had 1 total. So he's shooting the ball more since Luka's out, which is a great thing. So he's going to have high volume. Both those games, he shot 20
attempts
shots from the game, or 20 attempts. Last game was 13 from 3. 13 of those attempts were from 3, and then the game before was only 4. So, he's kind of spreading it back out. I'd love for him to keep shooting those threes. But also the game changer is he's getting to the free throw line even more the last 2 games. Last 2 games ago, he was 10 for 13, and then last game he was 12 for 12. So, yes, against Indy and Houston, but they're going up against Memphis, and Memphis is kind of that fast-paced team as well. They're young. I think it's Valanciunas. He's potentially not going to be playing. He's right now questionable, so then he'd be going up against Jaren Jackson. Porzingis didn't play the first game they played against each other, so kind of don't have that history to go off of, but just going off of recency bias, I went with it, and it's 8,300, and if he gets me in the 50s, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I also went with Porzingis, so I've got nothing more to add here. That's part of why I said let's hear your 4 first, because I can see your lineup and you can't see mine.
It's kind of scary where our lineups are going, but
yeah, we've got some overlap here. So for our head-to-head matchup, we're going to be counting on just a couple guys of difference here between Green and Porzingis that we've talked about so far. 8,300. I mean, there's no reason he shouldn't be able to come through. It'd be fun as a person who enjoys watching Memphis. It'd be fun if Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark block some of Porzingis' shots, because they would just be two massive people jumping really high, like blocking into the fifth row type
Yeah.
of thing. Not the best basketball, but the best highlight type stuff. But still, even if he had like 3 shots getting rejected, as long as he takes 20 shots, I think the fantasy points are going to be there.
Yeah, and I've watched the last couple games, and they literally are passing it to Porzingis, who's like 5 feet behind the top of the key, and he's just jacking up a 3 and getting close to either he's making it like nothing but net, or he's getting close to it. So, they're allowing him to shoot, especially not having Luka out. Someone has to carry the weight, and he's kind of stepped up the last 2 games. So you got to play the hot hand.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when this is in effect now, but just in case we aren't recording when it comes up, the first game Luka's back, I encourage people to look for Willie Cauley-Stein and see how cheap Willie Cauley-Stein's gotten, because for doing the pick and roll as that roll threat, I think Willie Cauley-Stein could be really effective. And it's post trade, and then Luka's been out, so Willie just can't really do what Dallas was hoping to like replace with Powell when they picked him up. So hopefully that Cauley-Stein price keeps going down, and then whenever it is that we get Luka back out there, it could be a really good game to strike, or even build a stack depending on what the price is and the matchup, obviously.
That's true,
but probably not right now because Luka's not back, and just let that go in the back of your mind. All right, for center, I actually played a guy who got a little upside because Willie Cauley-Stein left. I went with Marquise Chris. So he's 5,300, and he's just really gotten more opportunity for minutes. Like, he's getting consistent 25 minutes a game or so. So he had 24 points last game, 32, 20. At 5,300, obviously I want it up above 30, but if I can get 25 points out of it, I feel fine. And against Brooklyn, like, they've, depending on who they're going to see, we got either DeAndre or Jared Allen. Those guys aren't slouches, but I'm also just, it's not Embiid, right? Like, there's nothing there that like scares me off of playing a 5,300 price, and the game should be quick enough where there should be able to be some value there. What about you? Who's your guy?
My guy is the guy going up against your guy. I went with Jared Allen. I think he's going to be the guy who ends up playing. I feel confident in that. I think because of the pace of play, I feel like Jared Allen is going to be more the up and down for him to really go up against Chris as well, and he's going to be a good fit for that. Jared Allen is a block machine, and just a couple games ago against Detroit, I think in the first 7 minutes he had 3 blocks, one against Andre Drummond, and then 2 against another guy or their rookie that they had for Detroit. So he's really relying on blocks and rebounds. He doesn't take a lot of shots. So if he can get me double-digit points, that's good. But you get pretty decent. You get, I think it's, isn't it, 2 points per rebound, or 1.5 or something like that, the scoring in DraftKings.
Rebound is 1.25 points per rebound, 2 points for the blocks.
1.25. So, yep. So, those are good stats for him that he does really well in. 2 games ago, he had 13 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, and it got him 44 fantasy points. And because he had 5 assists as well. So, he's not going to shoot any threes, so I'm not going to get the extra points from the threes. He doesn't get to the line a lot. So really his money is in the, a double-double with 2 to 3 blocks. I think that's fairly potential against this Golden State team. So
yeah,
that's who I went with. Who'd
All
you
right.
go with your utility guard?
My utility guard. We don't overlap here, but we kind of do. Spoiler alert. So I went with Langston Galloway. And a little bit like I talked about with in the Dallas game, where I was saying Luka's out, so you're going to want to attack one of these 3 guards. Choose who feels right. The Pistons have Derrick Rose ruled out, Luke Kennard ruled out, Svi ruled out, and Kurt Thomas doesn't really affect because you don't expect him. So for their guards, they're already down 4 of the possible guard positions. So there's Reggie Jackson available at 4,900, or Langston Galloway at 3,500, or Tony Snell and other options that we're not really going to go with. So I went with Langston Galloway. I needed to save a little money. So he was the guy in my roster that's the cheapest. At 3,500, Langston Galloway had 24 fantasy points last game against Memphis when he played 37 minutes, which is definitely his high over the last 10 games. So when he was only playing 20 minutes, he was getting about 12 points a game. He doubles up, and his points, his fantasy points doubled up. So now, just because it happened doesn't mean it will again, but it felt like for a value play, there's a good chance here that I can get that, and his price didn't go up at all, or maybe it's $100. So 3,500, I think there's a pretty good chance that I can get like 7 times value maybe on this. So I got Langston Galloway. What about you? Who do you have for your guard?
Well, I was going to go potentially Bruce Brown. He's another option at guard for them. He's actually the same cost as the guy that I went with, which I felt like the guy that I went with was a better play, only because he's going to have the ball in his hands more. I went with Reggie Jackson, 4,900. He's going up against Phoenix, and you look at it, he hasn't really had a game over in the 40s, but I think this is the chance for that to be the case. This game is kind of setting up for him just to be the old Reggie Jackson and ball hog and just shoot a ton of threes. And so I kind of went with, at that point, 4,900. Even if he gets me in the 30s, that's over my 6 times value. So at that point, it's kind of just looking at, hey, all these guards that are out, I'm going to get the guard that has the ball in his hand. So I went with him. But don't sleep on Bruce Brown. 2 games ago, Bruce Brown did have, he had 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists against Denver. I believe that was on Sunday, the 2nd. Yep, Sunday. So, which gave him 46 fantasy points. So he's also a potential. So he's a guy that I have had picked up in keeper league, just because he's a stat stuffer. He's not going to get you 30 points. He's going to get you some points, double-digit points potential, rebounds, assists. He's going to be that guy that dives on the floor for the steals. So that's who I went with.
Cool. We'll jump ahead just because you happen to be talking about it. And when I said, there's Reggie Jackson or Galloway and no one else, I actually missed Bruce Brown and didn't name him because he's in my lineup. I was filtering to look at the guards, but Bruce Brown is in my utility. And so when I was reading off all the injuries, he didn't show up for it. So I don't have much more to add. I mean, it's like you said, he costs the exact same as Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson will probably have the ball in his hand more. And so that play makes more sense. I also believe if I check the prices, I think Reggie's coming at more of a deal because now Reggie went up $200, but Bruce Brown jumped up like 1,000. He jumped up $1,100 to 4,900. That's why they're matching the same. So typically, I'm trying not to play guys when they just jumped 1,000. In this case, jumped 20% in the price. But everything you said, I'm on board with. Sunday, he had a good game against Denver, which has a slower pace of play. You don't expect there to be a big game there. And Memphis, he was all right too at 27 points. That's already over 5 times value. But the consistent thing on both those nights was he played 38 minutes. So much like the way I played Galloway, I was expecting this minute spike. And so I was going with him. So I jumped out of order there and did my utility. So who's your forward?
My forward is Christian Wood. Same game. Last game against Memphis, he put up 32 fantasy points. He had 17 points, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks. And then in that Denver game, he only had 19 fantasy points. But kind of going back 4 games ago, he had 34 fantasy points against Brooklyn. With all these injuries, he's got to be able to play. Going up against Phoenix, he's going to have to go up against Ayton. Ayton, or I think it's Bridges as well. potentially that he would end up going up against him.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges because Tippy Toe Barnes is out. So yeah, it's gotta be Bridges. Ayton. I said Barnes. Ayton. God damn it. No. All right. Ayton's not out. Aron Baynes. Aron Baynes is out.
Baynes.
Yes, not Barnes. Not Matt Barnes.
Yeah,
Aron Baynes.
Yeah, they play Oubre at the small forward and then shift Bridges, I believe, down. Or vice versa.
Yeah.
They might be playing Oubre at power forward. But either way, he's going to get some minutes, especially with all those injuries. And I kind of like this play just because with Markieff Morris potentially ruled out again after he was ruled out last game against the Memphis. I think this is going to be just a chance for him to get more minutes. And when he gets the minutes, he's doing well. Any game that he's had over 25 minutes, he's been able to get 28 points. So I went with that.
Cool. So for my forward spot, which is actually the end of my roster, because I already talked about my utility, this is where I paid up a little bit, and I still have $700 left on the table, so I could potentially pay up even more. But I went with Jimmy Butler. You and I were talking before we recorded. Jimmy was just awesome against Philly the other night with 56 fantasy points. He's 8,500, so his price only went up $400 after that big game. And, I'm interested in this game just from a basketball standpoint. Miami versus the Clippers should be a fun game. So I was just kind of, I'm not going to bet into the winning streak. So I played Jimmy here. But like I said, $700. So for any reason anyone else has nagging injury, I could always pivot or build a multi lineup for, one of the big prize pools and swap out Jimmy's name for a couple other guys if I wanted to get, I don't know, Booker. Booker's actually a little bit cheaper if I wanted to. But Jimmy's who I have there. I also, if I switch it around to utility, you were just talking about the matchup against Phoenix. I liked Ayton as well. I was considering Ayton at 8,300. Again, he's a little bit cheaper too. All right, what about you? Who's your last slot?
Guy we talked about earlier, Tim Hardaway Jr., coming off a game against Indy where he had 38 fantasy points. No Luka, as we talked about. I think it's a two-headed monster of going forward until Luka comes back with him and Porzingis. They're really going to be relying on him to shoot the three. Last game, he was 4 for 8 in that, and they actually let him shoot more attempts itself. He had 17 attempts. And he actually filled out the stats a little bit better than he's really done all year. That game he had 5 assists and 4 rebounds. So I'm looking for him to do the same thing against Memphis. Just kind of show those young bucks who don't want Andre Iguodala, the old guys, around anymore. How to play the NBA. So,
right on. Yeah. So just to recap our crazy overlap. And I wasn't even scrambling this week. I wasn't saying, hey, who do I do the last? And going, oh, here's a value play from Shad. Mm-hmm. Nope, built totally independent. So we got Draymond. We both have Draymond. We both have Hardaway. We both have Porzingis. And then I played the two other Pistons guards. You played Reggie Jackson. So we covered the 3 options completely. That's really something. And then... we went that game Chris against Allen. We played big men against each other.
And it's not surprising. I mean, those 2 games, you look at it, like the Dallas-Memphis game, the last game was 138 to 122, so high scoring. And then Pistons and Phoenix, I feel like that's going to be a high-scoring game as well. I mean, Phoenix has been putting up a lot of points here recently, and they don't really play defense. And the Pistons are having to score more. They're being injured, so a lot of young guys are playing, so their defense isn't as great either.
Yeah, it's interesting. Neither of us played anyone from Atlanta or Minnesota in our head-to-head lineup, and that should be a fast-paced game, and neither defense is stopping anyone, really. So, I mean, Karl Anthony Towns is expensive, so that could be part of it. He's at 10.6.
Yeah.
Trey's questionable and still over 10K. And then after that, it was just like, Napier's been playing well. He might be worth a look.
Trey's questionable, and not to mention the trade deadline is Thursday, and there have been rumors about Minnesota and Atlanta and Houston all in a three-way trade. We're trying to get also Golden State, like D'Angelo Russell from Golden State. So that game with those two teams kind of mentioned, I was a little leery. One guy I would probably punt to, John Collins. John Collins has really been having a phenomenal last couple of games, so he would be a guy that would be on the radar if I, if I decided to kind of go a little bit lower on one of my mid-tier guys to try to get another 8K guy in there. He would be one that I would be definitely interested in matching.
Yeah, in this game, I have here on my notepad actually that I really gave Jeff Teague a look at 5,200. Trey's questionable. DeAndre Hunter's out. Is questionable. Cam Reddish is out, and Herter is questionable. So seriously, it's like 3 of their main guys or 4 of their guys could be out. So Jeff Teague should have the ball in his hand a lot, and they just traded for him. So it's unlikely that he's on his way out the door anywhere. So Jeff Teague should be a kind of safe play at 5,200. But I understand what you're saying. Like, it's a little, you got to be watching it with if you're playing Covington or potentially even Wiggins if the rumors are true that's actually on the move. Covington seems way more likely to me than Wiggins because Wiggins has such a bad contract. But, the rumors are out there. If he's really going to Golden State to get D'Angelo, then they need him just as like salary ballast just to make those numbers work. But Shabazz Napier's been having a really good stretch here of games. Unfortunately, they've kind of just priced him right at that level at 6,300, and he's been averaging about 35 points a game. Like, that's right at 6 times value, just slightly under it. So it just didn't feel like the ceiling was really there. Although, maybe against Atlanta, he could tear it up, but he didn't explode, and 2 of his last 3 games have been against Sacramento. So he's been doing well. He's been doing real well. I like him more in, say, season-long fantasy if you picked him up for the week than right now. Plus, I guess it wouldn't affect us for DFS. I was going to say if there is a trade for season-long fantasy, Napier's job, he might not have the point guard job all himself if they brought in D'Angelo, but that wouldn't affect him tomorrow night for that one matchup. So I suppose if you got him in season long, smoke him if you got him. You got anyone else you want to talk about?
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like they just upgraded Trae Young to probable, so even then that's with Jeff Teague it would hurt a little bit, but really outside of that, those were kind of the guys I was looking at. There wasn't really a lot of Sabonis was a potential only because he'd be going up against Toronto, and Toronto's easy to attack right now. And, I think the last game he went up against them, he had like 12 points and 17 rebounds. So he's going to get you those rebounds against Toronto. He's 9,200, so it's a little bit of expensive. And then when you look at, who was that? Vucevic has just played Boston. He got 4,100 against them. So, those are kind of the things that I was looking at. Obviously, and where's he at? Where's his cost? Drummond, 9,300. He does play his best games against, kind of taller, more athletic centers. And I feel like this would be a really good matchup for him. And he's 9,300. So obviously paying up, you really kind of need him to hit in the 60s. But he did get 54 and 52. So his last 2 games, and he's the only bodies, if you're going to pay up. So
yeah. And he's been in trade rumors too, but those seem to be dead. I don't really think he's getting moved, but there have been talks about that too.
Yeah,
I think it's good feedback. We didn't really talk about Boston at all. I'm not necessarily throwing out any players to get in there, but just if anyone's still listening to us ramble on after we finish our lineups, it's worth noting that Tice and Williams are both already ruled out. Marcus Smart, Enes Canton, Kemba Walker, and Gordon Hayward are all questionable. So it's just a shit show over there right now that, if you built them into your lineup, and you're driving home as rosters are about to lock at, it's a 7:30 game, you're going to have to pull over into a parking lot of a local strip mall and be changing all your lineups on the fly. So it's not necessarily a stay away, and there could be value there, but it's just so many players out that it's hard to build a lineup a night in advance with that.
Yeah, when you got 9 games, there's just some games you throw out and you say, I'm not even looking at. So for me, it was the Denver, Utah, and Orlando, Boston.
Yeah, defensive matchups and slow pace of play. I completely agree. Someone will pop from there, but I don't know who it's going to be,
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Well, thanks for the time and the advice again. Good luck. Hopefully I don't take 3 losses in a row.
3-0.
And good luck to all of our listeners out there on Wednesday. Go out there and make some money, guys.
Hit it big. Good luck.
All right, that'll wrap up another episode for us. If you're still watching, thank you for watching all the way through. Please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. It'll help us grow the channel. And I hope this advice helps out. Good luck out there on DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever you're playing. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, everybody.